Welcome to this exciting episode where we actually make something. We're going to put those carbon sills you see there at the bottom of the car between the front and back wheels. Chosen for a couple of reasons. First of all, they're not very visible, so if they're crap, because they're my first ever bit of carbon fibre, I can ignore them. Second bit is the guy who owned this car before me was not a careful driver. I'm sure he used to grind those curbs like a skateboarder. Loads of scuffs, loads of discoloration, big gouge marks. Unfortunately, I lost all the video of that. So what you see here is after I've sanded out the biggest gouges, the one on the left is what we're going to be showing this week, where we actually do something. So having sanded down out the gouges, we put on some black epoxy base layer, you can see there dribbles of it, and laid the single sheet of carbon fibre over the top of this. There's a join in the middle. I used two sheets deliberately so that I could see if a join would work or not. The sheet on the left, you can see, has got those lifted edges. That's because I made the mistake of trying to put the carbon fibre down and touch the epoxy. Once it touches the epoxy, it sticks, you can't move it. So it wasn't quite aligned properly. You can see on the one I prepared earlier, the lineup is okay, and a few bumps and wobbles, that's not finished. There is actually a join in the middle of this one as well. There, you can see it. So that's what it looks like when it's raw. Very obvious. And there, it's slightly less obvious if it wasn't for those dents and dibbles. This is the edge after that first coat of resin on the carbon fibre. It needs trimming. You could use scissors, you could use a Stanley knife. I use a Dremel. No special blades, just whatever cutting blade came with it. One thing, wear a mask or wear something to protect your eyes. Those carbon fibre splinters are a bitch when they get your fingers. God only knows what they'd be like if they hit you in the face. So, having done all that, you scuff it back down. I used a permagrit block because I had one. Took off the worst of those lumps at the join, but left lots of big gouges ready for mechanical grip. That means that when you paint the resin on the top, it's got something to stick into. Hoover, clean, do lots of cleaning, otherwise you get contamination and dirt. It's a pig. Ignore the guy on the left. This is where I discovered I recorded this whole thing without my microphone. Sorry, I'm loading video as well as making carbon fibre. But get acetone to clean stuff, get clear coat epoxy resin to do the resining, and make sure you use the right hardener. It does mark XCR hardener. Don't use the MECP, which comes for the other glass carbon fibre work you're doing, like molds, etc. That will not work. So measure stuff out. You've got a little drug scale there. Put a plastic cup on it, disposable. I still stir from coffee shops. It's just an easy way of doing it. Get cheap disposable brushes, cheap disposable stirrers, cheap disposable anything you can. So get your resin. We'll look at it carefully. It'll tell you by volume and by weight. Choose one. Doesn't matter which, but don't mix them. If you're doing it by weight for the resin, do it by weight for the hardener. I'm doing it by weight because, as I say, I've got the little scales there. So pour in the resin, pour in the correct proportion of hardener. If you don't want to know how much to do, you don't. There's a guy. There I am mixing. It takes ages. Keep an eye on the clock. But back to the quantity. I've got no idea at this point how much I was going to use. So I mixed up about 100. I think I went slightly over. And after stirring for 2 minutes, I have some cloudy mixed resin. Loads of bubbles in there. But when you paint them out, those bubbles come out. Slapping on this first coat, this is the stuff you're going to sand a lot off. It's giving you a protection layer. So you want to go on thick. You've put the first layer of resin to hold the carbon to the undercoat. This is going on top to give you a beautiful glossy layer. Slap it on like it's going out of fashion. I'd recommend, if you don't know how much to use, like I did here, you go along the full length. One thing to watch out for, if you pick up fluff and shit from your edges of the carbon fibre, whatever, get it off that brush. Otherwise, you'll get to the point where your resin's hardened and then you'll spot it. So fast forward to when I finished. I could work out when I finished because I ran out of resin. I'd give it a couple of coats. So here it is, sanded down, beautifully wet and glossy. That must be perfect. Nope, there's contamination. Didn't wipe it down properly, didn't clean all the acetone off. And there's at the center seam, there's a void and the resin sunk into it. But sand it down anyway. You get away with it. No one will notice it. Actually, yeah, they do. That looks pretty crap. So, bought myself, you just about saw it down on the sander, bought myself an interface pad. There you go. It's just a bit of foam. God, the difference that makes. I cut it down so it fitted my little domestic stander, made it beautiful smooth. Rather than go for resin, I just used some U-Pol, sprayed it down, and that's clear coat. UV protection, goes on nicely, doesn't leave you with a load of nasty marks, reduces the chance of runs. So I think I gave it 3-4 coats of clear coat, put it back on, and there's the finished result. So what did we learn? Well, it's easier than we thought, but a lot more time consuming. You can't gloss over faults. You need to actually correct them, sand them back, etc. Joins in panels are possible, but not desirable. They're kind of okay, you kind of blend in. And it's really now time for me to find some scrap wings so I can start molding the front end. If anyone knows of any of them, please let me know. Other than that, like, subscribe, etc., etc.